All right. Well, thank you, everybody out there in podcast land. I'm Eric with Rising Tide Landscapes, sponsoring Raising the Grade podcast, and I'm here with Dave Walls of Valleywide Painting Pros. Welcome.
Hey, glad to be on.
Thanks for just taking a leap of faith and jumping on a podcast.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's one of those things. We've all seen a million of them, but being here on the receiving end, I'm excited to sit in the pocket. And as you kind of take a look at where we're at as a business and any of the, the details that are hopefully valuable or, maybe get a giggle or two out or learn what to not do.
Yeah.
Happy to be part.
Yeah, no, this is such a fun experience. Literally, it comes up every time, but it's just such a personal, one-to-one direct connect that is hard to get outside of here. Yeah, unless you're really intentional about it. We met at a BNI meeting a while back, and just recently I was like, hey, I need to paint.
Yeah.
And so I was flipping through my book. I'm like, I remember, I like that guy. So we went out to breakfast and decided, yeah, I still like that guy. So, let's get him on the podcast. So the first thing I kind of hit everybody with is,
yes,
who's Dave?
Who's Dave? Well, a lot of ways I can answer that. The first I'm going to give you is it's really easy to find our identity tied up in what you do. Because as adults, that's what we mean, right? So who are you? What I mean is, what do you do? I'm a firefighter, right? I'm a painter. I'm in real estate. That's who you are. We kind of put people in the boxes.
Yeah.
A deep cut right away, I'll tell you that I strive to understand my identity as God ordains it, right? And as he shows me through his word and, as I seek to know him more and more, I want my Identity wrapped up in who God calls me to be. And
Amen.
Who am I? I guess a child of the one true King. Now, with that said, if you were to look at my world, you'd see I have my big three, right? And so I am either doing something that invests in one of these three things, or I'm probably deep asleep, right?
Yeah.
So I have a family, right? Value them dearly. I have a daughter who just turned 7 over the weekend, and my wife and I were celebrating our 10th anniversary this July.
It's fantastic.
I have my church. I care deeply about the local church, and so I invest in the student ministries, junior high, high school, young adults in my church. Absolutely love what's going on there. And then, of course, my business. And so making sure that we're doing all we can to thrive, to be competitive, to be wise and discerning in what we do. And so pretty much all my waking moments, I'm all in on one of those items. Or again, I'm sawing logs.
I love it. So were you always in the valley? Have you always been a native out here?
Yeah. I'm the youngest of 5, and I'm the only Arizona native. My other siblings were born in Michigan.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, I have like Michigan pride, like go Wolverines, all that. People are like, oh, so you're from there or you went there? I'm like, no, it's just kind of a thing, right?
Okay.
Lots of summers up in Michigan with family. But yeah, Arizona native. I grew up at like 43rd and Cactus near Metro Center Mall. And now I'm in the West Valley.
Do you see yourself living it out here, retiring here probably, or?
Yeah, I think the long-term goal would be to in-state snowbird, right? And so Flagstaff,
yeah.
That's our home away from home. And so a big part of why my wife and I thought it'd be wise to go into starting our own business is ideally to put us in a financial place where hopefully at a little bit younger of an age than retirement age, we'd have financial freedom to snowbird in-state.
Comes a little bit.
Exactly.
I like that idea, actually, of snowbirding in-state. Would you have another branch up that far where you're still kind of working and snowbirding, or just stay in the valley with the biz and then you're camping out in Flagstaff without any business ties or worries?
That's a good question. I will tell you, painting, I wouldn't say it's easy necessarily, but just for the sake of conversation, it's an easy business to start and to get running, right?
Lower barriers to entry.
Exactly. I've considered it, but truly where I'm at, there are so many opportunities in the valley, and I'm learning that as the business grows, I'm already doing my best to kind of distance myself in a healthy way.
Sure.
And so here and now, even where we're at as a business, I'm not always needed on site in the valley, right? If I were traveling, if I was up north, if I was, out with family somewhere else, I'm not needed necessarily boots on the ground. And so I might always be able to run things from, I might be, sipping a Mai Tai on the beach, no,
Fair.
Being facetious, but yeah, maybe Flagstaff. Okay. I don't
I love that. And I think that all of us that own businesses to some degree kind of have that in the back of our mind. I think you and really a lot of my guests have a pretty good understanding of the distancing between yourself and the business. How long is it taking you to get to a spot where you're comfortable kind of taking the training wheels off and letting that business kind of ride by itself?
I've found that's just how I'm wired. I'm not a micromanager, so it's easy for me.
That was honed in there because I think you could help people there if you could maybe help them understand how you're able to be comfortable with that, because so many of my guests, and myself included, really worry,
Yeah. Now, for me, I guess it would come down to who are you delegating to? So delegating in general isn't always, the best idea. Or delegating to someone you can't trust will keep anyone awake at night.
Sure.
And so if you put people in a place that you trust, then the people you trust, putting them in things that you're comfortable with, them having leadership over, to me, that's the secret sauce. And so I don't want to put somebody in a place that I'm not confident that they can thrive in.
Yeah.
And if I do,
for failure.
Exactly. Yeah. If I do, then I'm going to expect that they're going to need a lot of me. So essentially what I have done is found people that I can see how I do my best to identify their gifting and to build a position around what they're gifted in. And then I trust them. And I let them know that they have my trust, but I always have as much of me to give as they need. And so, hey, I trust you to be the one on this project, but I'm always a call or text away. And so they're on the project and they're good to go, and they're not hearing from their boss every 5 minutes. Yeah. How's it going? How's it going? What are you doing? Did you do it right? They know, hey, I trust you. And I'll say the funny thing is, being hands off sometimes can be perceived as an apathetic leader. So, hey, I trust you. Hey, how come you never ask how things are going?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because I trust you.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I wish that you would ask a little more.
Yeah. No, that's so funny to hear, because I think there's some validation that you want to hear from somebody if you think they care, and because you didn't hear from them, therefore they don't care, is a false logic train.
Yes.
Yeah. Because I'm very much the same way. I'll have people that I'm thinking about employing write me their dream offer letter to help expose some of the things that are important to them and skills that they think they have, so that I can kind of get an idea of, okay, not sales because they just admitted they just want to live in the basement for the rest of their lives, or, vice versa. So I can totally respect that. Still, though, there had to be a point where it was, I wanted to go back a little bit more to learn a little bit more about pre-Valley-wide Painting Pros day. Okay. You had a couple other jobs prior that kind of led you to be at this spot where you're able to be a little more hands-off. I think is where I was trying to go with that is it didn't just happen overnight. What were like maybe some of your first plays, and what were your businesses before that got you to this sweet spot? Yeah,
that's a great question. So, I mentioned my heart for the local church. Mm-hmm. A lot of my time goes to meeting, planning, prepping, facilitating. I'm deeply involved, and I give a lot of my time and energy to my church. Now, the reason I lead with that is, as I serve at my church, I wanted to essentially fund my ministry addiction. And so in the process, initially what I was doing ad nauseum is I was a music teacher. So I taught part-time at a local school, and I gave insane amounts of music lessons, in that, for the most part, made ends meet, and the rest of my time was either with family or ministry.
Okay.
Right?
I didn't know this. What instruments what did you lead with? Is it just everything, or?
Yeah, so drums are my native tongue, right? And so I traveled professionally for a few years straight out of high school.
Okay.
And so drums, these days I'm behind a guitar a lot more often. But when I was teaching band, I mean, it was the usual, saxophone, clarinet, all the other stuff. So I know just enough to be dangerous on a whole bunch of instruments, but drums, really, that's where I could sit in and hit the road right now if I needed to.
That's so fun. Okay, sorry to interrupt.
No.
Continue.
No, that's all right. So my contracting world started with my first company, West Valley Garage Coatings. And so the idea was, as all businesses are started these days, I hear you can make $1,000 a day. If I made $1,000 a day, my goodness, right?
Guilty.
You got the bait, right?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. That was great. And so I thought to myself, hey, if I can do these, and I had this filter. I had what can be accomplished by one man, where I don't need some big team, right? What can be accomplished in such a way where I don't need copious amounts of startup, to fund this. It needs to have money in it, a couple different things, right? It's not going to, be a huge time pit, but it's going to be worth the time I put into it. And arrived at the one-day flooring installs using a product called Polyaspartic. Okay. And so there's a huge market for it. There's a lot of need. And at the time, it was kind of blossoming in the valley to where I didn't have a ton of competition. And so the neat thing is they can be installed by one person in one day from start to finish, right? And so you have a luxury service where a homeowner is saying, I really want this. I know it's a big ticket item, and you're able to provide it from start to finish in one day. So
tend to have pretty happy customers.
Yes, exactly.
If they already have kind of an expectation of what they're getting and that you come through on the solid with that, are you able to share the difference between, because I think upon our first breakfast was like, oh, you do epoxy floors, and you're like, well, not exactly.
Yeah.
Will you differentiate those for me just a little bit so people listening can go, what's polyaspartic? What is it?
Yes. No. So your garden variety epoxy, everyone knows what it is. It's been around forever. You can use it from anything, pour it into a wooden, tabletop, or, use a floor, or use it to cast something in resin. And so it has its pros and its cons. The biggest drawback for your garden variety epoxy is it's not UV stable. It tends to be very slippery, and it struggles to have a long-term bond to cement.
So if it's not UV stable, it's going to break down quickly, probably yellow.
Yeah, it yellows at first, and that's just the first sign of it being quite literally off your floor.
Okay.
So first it yellows, so then you have this beautiful floor day one, year one, year two.
Not so much.
It aged. You could see the yellowing and things like that. They peel off of concrete, and so in time from hot tires or a lot of use, it's what you would call a non-resilient flooring. And so just like porcelain, it can break upon contact because it's really hard. So you drop a hammer on your tile, you expect it to break. You drop a hammer on your linoleum, and you expect it to maybe dent, but it's not going to break.
Sure.
Right? And so the epoxy has some drawbacks. Now the polyaspartic really counteracts those main issues. So it's 100% UV stable, it's highly slip resistant, and it forms a lifetime bond to the concrete itself. And so when we're working with a homeowner, we're able to say, hey, you can have epoxy, which is not UV stable, it's slippery when it's wet, you're going to see your concrete again, X, Y, and Z. Or you can have polyaspartic. By the way, the epoxy, a formal high-quality epoxy install can take anywhere from 2 to 6 days to install. And oftentimes you're wanting somewhere around 5 to 10 days where you don't want any traffic on it afterwards, right? So there's that.
If you read the bag, basically, the way they say to do it. Now, I doubt that's even the way it's done many times. But
you're right. So there's that world that's the garden variety epoxy. And then over here you have 1 day install, lifetime warranty, UV stable, won't delaminate, great slip resistance.
Can you use this outside, like around pool decks or patios or something like that?
Yeah. So I use this story when I'm talking about homeowners pretty often. Well, can it go on a patio? And I'll tell them, it's on my patio, and I actually never wanted it on my patio. So I have it's my daughter's. She would do chalk on it. She loved it. It was her jam. Now, however, I have a lawn that I care deeply about, and it shoots water onto that patio every single day, making it very painfully slippery. where the adult's full-time job is don't slip, don't slip, don't slip.
Stop.
And so one day my daughter had her first real significant slip and fall. I had it coated by the end of the weekend. And that was just for the slip resistance. So it's 100% UV stable. It looks great. People want us to do them all the time. I just wanted to let my daughter do her job.
Can you, like, is this the same thing? Like, you would put flakes in and stuff like that as well? Is there, like, plain colors? Can you just be like, hey, no flakes? Like, is that a thing? Like, paint colors almost? Like,
yeah. It's not very common that a homeowner asks for it. The flake, oftentimes the presentation, I really like the way it looks, and we have tons of different color options for them. So they like the way it looks, and it gives an added texture to the floor. That's part of the slip-resistant nature.
Got it.
From time to time, somebody just wants a floor that looks like gloss. That's where I'll tell them, hey, when you look at this versus the epoxy, a big part of what gives this polyaspartic, that slip-resistant nature,
it's the flake.
it are those flakes that you build in. Now, we can put aluminum oxide into a floor just the same. Aluminum oxide doesn't age very well. It's like almost like glorified table salt.
Yep.
So we've all felt that underfoot. So.
Yeah, so it's not gonna perform. Did you do flooring at some portion as well?
Yes.
In your back?
No, just the Polyaspartic.
Just the Polyaspartic. Okay, cool. Where do you see kind of the industry going? Like, usually I'll touch on maybe AI or anything like that. But what's beautiful is most of the people I interview are really service based. But do you see any future tech to come or anything like that that's going to make painting that much easier? Like, are robots going to paint, or what do you think?
That's funny. I haven't spent too much time about the iRobot version of paint.
Yeah, sure.
My concerns, there.
Yeah.
Now, on my end, one of the things where my mind goes is, hey, AI is going to overtake a lot of things. Legitimately, not trying to be a doomsday theorist.
Yeah.
But the rate at which it's at everyone's fingertips, and how quick it can, certain jobs it would take somebody 80 hours, it can do in seconds, right? And so obviously there are concerns for many industries, and there are probably perceived benefits of having AI and how you structure a business and how you could potentially use it as a tool. At the end of the day, being in my industry, we're always going to need flesh and blood people who are in person, on site, furnishing the work. And at the end of the day, I've found that a lot of our homeowners can Google until they're blue in the face, but they want a professional they can speak to who's going to advise on something.
It's just there on site. Yes. I just think of the prep and just how, coming from the building work, like once I did my first paint job, I was so surprised at the level of prep that goes into a good painting job.
Yes.
Not just a painting job, but a good painting job. But what value would you place on the prep, setting the expectations, and then maybe the paint of choice?
Yeah, so there's that old adage in golf. Now, I'm awful at golf, so let's not pivot too deep into that.
Darn it.
I have a lot of fun when I play.
Yeah, it's all
I'm just not very good. But, there's the drive for show, putt for dough, adage. I think painting and flooring, those are both very similar. So when I'm working with a customer, I see a set of golf clubs, I'll drop that, and immediately you have them. Oh, tell me more. So like our floors, we prep them with a diamond grind. It's very important to have a good grind. Not all grinds are made equal. Some people think you just wash it or acid etch it. No, a diamond grind is what's recommended. But same for a painting job. I'll say, hey, anyone can put paint on your home, but how you prep it, again, that would be the putt for dough, right? How you prep it, that's the unsung hero. And so for us, every single project starts with a copious prep. So if we're going to paint a garden variety exterior, it starts, obviously we mask the windows and we pressure wash. And my team is trained to quite literally go 1 square foot at a time. And so they're walking home, looking at each area. I see a crack. Okay, we have an approach for that. Okay, that window needs a fresh bead of caulking. Okay, that foundation's sloughing. Got it. Okay. And before we even consider cracking open a can of paint, or perceivably before we've even ordered it, we're spending several hours going through 1 square foot at a time. Now from there, when you're getting your paint, that's where our customers always have the ability to determine what's the lifespan that they're looking for for their
Isn't that weird that, like, pretty much you can by your lifespan of your paint,
Yes.
or how long you want that color to remain your color.
Yes. Yeah.
And they've done the math on the backside that like this is entry, mid, and high level, and they'll put it on paper.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's neat. So when we're coming into a project, we try to get a feel with our homeowner. Hey, are you getting ready to list? Would you mind telling us a little bit more about what this is looking like? And the way it's typically presented to a customer, which is disarming and true for the record, is, hey, we don't have any dog in the fight in regards to what material you have us use. We're going to use Sherwin-Williams, and we trust their products. Now, on my side of things, I will advise on what I think would meet your goals best. But at the end of the day, we're going to do the same thing 3 different ways. So I'll give them a good, better, best and say, hey, you're paying the difference in materials. We're not making any money off of this. And so I make sure that we're going to cover the difference in materials. When I give a good, better, best, I typically don't change the price much more than that. So I make sure our shelf
Your baseline of the work you're doing
Exactly.
is the number, and then it's just, what do you want us to put on?
Exactly. So, hey, we can do this project for $3,500 out the door. That includes everything. Taxes are baked in, processing fees. $3,500 is what we can do this for. Now, if you want a different product, we have a few different options that we can offer you for a few $100s either way. $3,500 is your base price. We can do it for $38 or $45 as well with X product.
And you've kind of had this relationship with Sherwin-Williams for a while. How important are your partnerships? Do you have any other partnerships that are very key or critical to your success outside of them being a painter? I get it. It's not a whole lot of moving parts, but anybody else you really rely on?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if this is necessarily where you're suggesting with this question, but I'll tell you, as I have networked, I have found tremendous value in the real estate industry. And so when you say partners, that's where my ears perk up a little bit. I have found more and more when I used to think cold calling and emailing was going to do great for networking. When I sit down with someone in real estate, without fail, it seems like the next day my phone lights up with something they need. And so that's the difference between Eric, who sells homes, and I say, hey, Eric, if you ever need a painter, I'm your guy. And you go, sounds good. And you've already forgot who I was and what the conversation was about. Well, I sit down and we sip coffee. We learn about each other's families, X, Y, and Z. Those relationships I'm learning are really, really key. As far as materials are concerned, in those relationships, we have a company for our floors that we go to because Sherwin and Dunn Edwards and all the big box stores, none of them seem to be interested in the product we're using. Okay. So we have a great relationship and pricing that I appreciate at a place called Prestige Protective Coatings. Great service. They stand behind their product. They'll come visit and install if you need it. They're huge. But when you say partners, I can't help but see names and faces that are bringing some good things in our direction.
What are some business lessons that you wish you might have been able to read in a book that you had to learn the hard way?
Getting back to not micromanaging. By nature, I can struggle with the details. Okay, now I know that this probably can't be read. I guarantee it's a ton of ink has been spilled on this. So this is a me problem, not I wish somebody wrote it in a book necessarily.
Yeah, or that you
learn the hard way.
To discover it.
Learn the hard way is doing a ton of work doesn't make you profitable.
Amen.
And so there have been times for us as a company where we've worked 7 days a week with multiple crews for an entire month straight. And then you look at the numbers and you go, we lost money. How in the world can you do something like that? And realizing just because you're really busy doesn't mean you're doing things the right way. So, that's a hard lesson to learn because there's so much. Yeah, you look at that same month and you can say, goodness, if we just tweaked this or that, I don't know if it necessarily would have affected our close rate in a negative way or by much. And we would have seen a lot of revenue available for us to use and leverage at the end of a month like that. So I had to learn, even though I'm not the details guy, and I still am not necessarily, that's not where my gifting is at. I can't be the guy at the top and not have a good handle on the details.
Yeah, it's one that you just can't get away from.
Yeah.
Until the point you can hire it out, and then you're
Yes.
probably doing just fine anyways, right? What would you say is your growth pattern or your growth potential, or maybe business-wise, what your hopes are for the next 1 or 5 or 10 years? Have you kind of put a timeline on when you want to get up to Flagstaff for home number 2, or?
That's funny. I don't want to look at what my 1, 3, 5, 7, 10-year plan was 7 years ago, because it would tell me where I'm supposed to be right now. But I have one on my phone. I bet if I looked, somewhere in the 20 teens, you're going to see, this is where I'd like to be by 2025. I will tell you, but where I'm at right now, I would really like to see an additional crew, probably 2 additional crews a year, I think is a good growth pattern. Making sure that all the while the structures that are facilitating and leading those crews are giving us the ability to make sure we're still lean and efficient in the ways that we need to be, and having optimal profitability. And so where we're at right now, we're running 3 crews, looking at bringing on a 4th. And my big struggle annually is when you hit summertime, the economy here in the Valley is the opposite of where it is so many other places in the United States. We're here in Arizona. At summertime, people want to, one of our big concerns, they hibernate, they get out of town, or they were our snowbirds that were great while they were here, but now they're gone. Yeah.
Are your crews primarily doing both services that you offer, or do you have like a flooring crew and a painting crew and another painting crew, or like, what's that like?
Yeah. So when I bring on painters, I bring on gentlemen that are experienced. And so they are not experienced in the floors necessarily. And it's a pretty niche area in contracting. And so the flooring guys, we have maintained the same crew lead for about 4 years now. Now he is a jack of all trades, where he can, oftentimes he's ready to paint and he's on the crew and he's helping in that way. But he's on every single floor that we do as a company. Now, as far as painting is concerned, that's a lot easier for me to scale. But our painters are not necessarily cross-trained. We have a team that does the floors and an individual that can, paint just as good as the rest of them.
How would you say, do you have your finger on where, and you don't have to maybe share the gritty details, but give me a sense of like your ratio maybe of floors to painting homes, and which one, if all things were equal and you could just turn a light switch on and get all the leads, would you do all floors or more floors, or would you change your balance out at all?
Yeah, if it was flip a switch and everything's hunky-dory, ideal, we'd be doing floors exclusively.
Interesting.
Yeah, now, I knew from day one when I was doing floors and I was a one-man band, just me, I knew that the long-term goal was eventually to absorb the flooring outfit into a painting business. And I continue to kick the tires on whether or not that truly was the direction the company was going in. And now, you said ideal conditions. The floors are potentially more profitable per day, and everything is one day start to finish. 99% of our jobs are done in a day, and we almost never get callbacks. So it is, you put a bow in it.
Kind of dreamy right there. Yeah.
And we have it down to a science where we know what our profit is going to be, our materials, our labor. Pretty dialed in. Now,
that's a good feeling as a business owner.
It is.
To be able to walk into something like there's certain aspects of certain jobs that I know are going to be pretty much repetitive, and all my costs are locked up. And that other stuff we do that's pretty wonky, and we're going, well, hope it works out.
Yeah. Now, painting, I wouldn't go as far as to say it's the I hope it works out, but there are a lot more variables. And so the same square footage on the interior of a home can be a 3-day job, or it could be an 8-day job.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, we had a project in Tempe that we completed on Thursday of last week that we started the previous Wednesday. Now, that's a perfect example of a home that could have been, if it was unoccupied and we showed up and I put 2 crews in that home, we would 2.5, 3 days max. But every room is lived in, and the agreement we had with the homeowner is, hey, here's what this looks like. Here are some of the things that are built into our contract. Here's what it looks like for us to paint essentially one wall at a time for most of these spaces. So I'll paint this wall, and I'll move on to something else for a minute, and I'll paint this wall one more time. And now I'm going to move everything against that wall, and now I'm going to paint this one, and then I'm going to paint. So you can see, right? You multiply that out, and you see how it turns into an in-date project. So painting, there are so many variables. There's a lot of callback on it. But the reason I say, hey, if I could have all floors, I have found that the need for floors, the deeper I got into business, it's not that the need didn't exist, but how would I put this? I found in the polyaspartic flooring industry that I was only going to grow the company as big as my marketing gifting would allow me. And so,
okay, well said.
So if I am,
you've got to tease that out of somebody to some degree, because they probably don't need a floor. There wasn't a floor there already. They're replacing. Is a true kind of luxury spend to some degree.
Exactly. Now, I'll put it this way. I have a ton of respect and admiration for my competitors that are absolutely knocking it out of the park with their marketing. I know at the time before we officially brought painting in, I knew I was able to be privy to some of the ad spend that was going into some of these companies, and what gave them the ability to give the amount of estimates required to run several crews and grow this empire. And I knew that's not something that's really my comfort level. And so if I were to do your floor, Eric, right? Mm-hmm. You say, hey, I want this really high quality gold standard floor on my home.
Okay.
I could do your floor, and you could tell your brother, your sister, your aunt, your uncle, your best friend, your people at church, this, that. And you tell them all, they might just go, that's cool. Mm-hmm. That's neat. Yeah. How much was that? Ooh, you're crazy. Right. Now, I paint your home, and I might do 5 jobs in the next month because of you.
Yeah, that's truth. Like, I totally can see that.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for business owners then, too, to hone in on the things that make you the money, ultimately, to stay alive, to keep paying the bills, but have something else in your pocket, like the flooring angle of your business, so that when that call comes in, you're well prepared, you go and you make that extra money. I'm just, my head's spinning about like how to grow that. And you're right. I mean, I think it's just, they need to want a top-notch product for their floor.
Yeah. Now, when we find our opportunities, we found our close rate for our floors is very high, because our competitors, to justify the gobs of money that they're putting into their marketing, their price oftentimes is 30 to 80%, quite literally 80% higher than ours is. And so when we sit in front of Johnny Homeowner, and
I got news for you. That's your marketing pitch right there.
Yes, it is. And oftentimes, there has been a coaching process to where it's either myself or another company that has done it. Unfortunately, other companies oftentimes will make it sound like they're the only ones in the world that do it.
For sure.
But kings to them if they can win the day with that. Okay. We're the only people in the whole universe.
Yeah.
But what we've found is oftentimes, I'd say a majority of our homeowners, when we meet with them, I've already spoken to 2 other companies, and I know who those companies. I don't even have to ask. I know who they are because they're in. If it even crosses your mind, you find them on Google, you find them on Facebook, you find them on Instagram.
They're in your feed.
Yeah, and it's cool. Let me get that schedule. And I never really found the secret sauce on that one, and I knew, you know what? I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze for me, and so I would rather something that's a little more robust, less reliant on a booming economy.
The need is so much more gigantic for painting versus the specialty project. So you said earlier that you have a business to feed your ministry addiction. Let's go back to when that addiction kind of started for you. Were you kind of raised in the church, just always been? Did you have a moment Walk me through that process a little
Yeah.
bit if you're
Oh,
open to
that's a cool question. Thanks for asking. I'd love to tell you a little bit about that. So, grew up in the church? No. Popped into a church once or twice here or there as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
By the time I hit my teenage years, I really had a worldview that had nothing to do with caring about who God was. I basically wrapped my mind around, have fun while you're here because you turn into fertilizer later, and so die with shiny things and have fun while you're here. And always knew, as I grew up, maybe there's more to this, maybe there's not. Now, when I was 14, I got invited by some friends to come play football. It's hey, come play football with us on a Wednesday night. I popped in and played football. We did, and it was fun and it was competitive. And there's a bunch of jocks and cool older guys that are like in their early 20s. Oh, it's fun. We're playing football. This is great. And then football's wrapped up. Let's go. And we went in, and there were some worship songs and a Bible lesson, and split up for small group discussions. And the football was enough fun, and the people were cool enough to where I came every Wednesday night for the rest of high school, for the most part. So I came steady, and the funny thing is, and shortly thereafter started serving on the worship team at the church as well. So every Sunday I was on the worship team.
Okay.
Every Wednesday I was at the youth group from age 14 all the way on through, all the while having zero care or desire to identify with what the people around me were doing.
Wow.
It's
So you were just kind of there for the good time.
I was there for the good time.
Good time, good people.
Yep. And I respectfully bit my tongue the whole time.
Wow. Yeah, I look at a lot of churches too, and I just wonder how often that's kind of happening and going on in a lot of churches, and how many kind of leaders are probably not oblivious to that, but maybe numb to it. Or I think it's a hard one to spot.
Yeah.
Truthfully.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And at the end of the day, a ministry philosophy I have is what catches them keeps them. And so if
Good one.
free pizza and carnivals and all of that is all I can do to get students in front of me as I'm a ministry leader, then that's all I will. That's the monster I'll have to feed.
Yeah.
And so when it's more geared on discipleship and Bible teaching and forming relationships, typically those things I've found in the ministry that I'm facilitating, those things tend to rise up a little bit more. Is where do you stand on that? What do you believe, man? Let's talk about it. Let's go grab a milkshake.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so I made it through high school, essentially being in this place where I'm really comfortable with what I believe, and the more I think about this Christian life, the more I am opposed to it. It seems like all the fun things that I enjoy are on this cosmic list of do not do.
Sure.
And wow, Christians sure are boring people. And so I'll enjoy the things that I enjoy separate from them, and I'll be around and be respectful in the process. And so loved serving on the worship team. It had a blast. Loved being a part of the youth ministry, going to all the events and the camps and everything. But just really didn't have any aspect of faith that was valuable to me or mattered at the time.
So I have a couple questions before you go past that line. Mom and dad, siblings, anybody else kind of coming with you at some point? This is kind of your thing.
Yeah, so it was kind of my thing at that point. In time, I knew both my parents had faith. It wasn't a huge, I always grew up, hearing my dad say, hey, all the giftings you have are from God who loves you and has given these to you. Use them for good and things like that. And knew that my mom, had a faith of some sort, right?
Okay.
But not huge in the family growing up. And at that time, not huge as a family either. It was more, kind of my thing at that point.
Cool. The other question is, and you're probably going to get there, but the drumming probably started somewhere in here.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. So I started drumming without realizing it. I patterned my entire life after my older brother.
Okay.
So older brother, he's 7-8 years older than me.
Mm-hmm.
And that meant when I was 5-6 years old, he was the cool teenager, and he played drums. And so I had one of those brothers that was like, as my little brother, you're best seen, not heard. So he was not like, a banner older brother where he's just there with all the love and cuddles and embrace and knuckle sandwiches and fun stuff and noogies. It was like I'm a nuisance. However, I could sit quietly and watch him drum and just like gawk at how cool my older brother was. So he'd let me sit in his room and he'd just ignore that I was there. And by the time I was 6 going on 7, I grabbed some sticks and never stopped, playing from that point on. So he was someone I looked up to. But by the time, and that's something that gifting, it just clicked for me. So by the time I was a teenager, I don't say this to toot any horns or anything, but I was kind of world stage ready. It was one of those things. It worked for me. And so at a very young age, I had the aptitude. And so when the church, actually, here's what happened. My first Sunday when I visited the church. So I came on a Wednesday night. They said, hey, we meet Sunday mornings too. I went, and afterwards I was the annoying kid that said, can I play the drum set?
Oh, okay.
And so I played the drum set, and the worship leader said, hey, do you want to come audition this week? I auditioned, and I started playing on the worship team after that.
Yeah, of course.
So that kept me in on Sundays.
Okay. And so then what?
Yeah. So,
like we've gotten up to your 18 so far.
Yeah. So I graduated at 17. And when I was 16 going on 17, I had been playing in the same rock band that me and some friends started when we were in 5th grade. So we're playing local clubs and dive bars and things like that as teenagers, having fun. And it was the cliche
what a dichotomy of worlds you've got cooking.
Yes. Yeah. And so at this point, the band is getting ready to break up, right? Guys are going to the military, serious relationships, all of that. And so I'm a little bit younger than my friends. I'm a year behind. And so as I'm going into my senior year and they're going into the rest of their adult life, I had realized, you know what? Every time I go to like some big tour that comes through town, one of the bands that I love has a different drummer or bassist or guitar player or, fiddle player, whatever, right, is sitting in. And I said, I want to be that guy. So right now, what I'm looking for is we need a drummer ready to tour tomorrow. I'm him, right?
Okay.
And so that's what I decided. And so I took to Craigslist. Yeah.
What?
Took to the world of Craigslist. Put together a little post. I'll never forget. I was in senior like U.S. history class or something like that.
Okay.
And I get an email and it says, hey, we're looking for a guy that can look the part, act the part, in his early 20s, has the gear. We're playing a concert at Tempe Beach Park in 2 weeks, headlining this huge, or not headlining, but playing for this huge festival. I had like Jimmy Eat World and Fall Out Boy and all these huge artists. And, we're playing on the main stage that day. We need a guy. And to which I responded, yep, I'm 21 and I'm your guy. So I'm like, absolutely. And I auditioned and made the band. And so 2 weeks later, I was still a senior in high school. The band didn't know that.
Yeah.
I worked during the days, is what they knew.
Yeah.
And so 2 weeks later, as a 17-year-old kid, I'm looking at a sea of probably 15, 20,000 people and drumming with this rock band. And so as time went on, eventually I went from the hired hand to, hey, do you want to be our guy? And as I'm a senior in high school and I'm doing music videos and traveling on the weekends and, doing TV specials and things like that. And weeks after I graduated, I was off touring. And so.
Can you name drop?
Yeah, the band's called Halocene. It's spelled Halocene. If you look them up now, you're going to see a very different band than what I was in at the time.
Very fair.
Yeah. They're good people and I love them dearly. It's probably not.
Your worldviews have shifted a bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, 666 black metal kind of stuff now. But at the time, it was like Paramore, it's a pop punk female fronted band. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, it's like fun, upbeat, energetic, pop punk music. Yeah. If you look at it now, it's like blast beats and this sorts. I'm getting. It's not a drumming podcast, so I better out.
It's a whatever podcast.
But no, they've been touring nonstop.
Wow.
They haven't quit, and so they're all over Europe. And my wife and I, we were in Anaheim at the House of Blues a couple weeks ago to see one of my favorite artists. And while we're there, she elbows me. She's like, "Look," and I look over, and there's the Halocene poster because they're headlining a concert next week. And I'm like, "Small world, small world."
Wow, I love hearing stories like that and just how impactful so many people are, and then you go through all these different phases, and it's always fascinating.
Yeah.
Life's fascinating to me. So, okay, I haven't got to the switch yet.
So here's the switch.
Where's Dave the pastor come in?
Here's the switch. Is I'm 17 going on 18. I have my music career ahead of me, and I sit down with a worship pastor at my church, and I open up to him, and I said, "Hey, here's the thing. My entire life, I've dreamed of being a professional drummer. As far back as I can remember having transient thoughts, I wanted to be a rock star."
Mm-hmm.
And
You're about to realize it.
and I said, "Here I am. I've said the words, and it's true. I'm making money. I'm playing the shows. I'm the guy. I'm in the music videos, and I'm signing autographs, and this stuff is happening. And I'm terrified because I've never felt more empty in my entire life. So I uniquely had the ability to get my life's ambition accomplished as a 17-year-old kid." And so I sit down with my worship pastor and just tell him, like, man, I'm devastated and depressed because here I am. And his response was pretty jarring. He said, what if you got hit by a car today? Like, what? That's a great way to have a conversation. He's like, what if you got hit by a car and you could never drum ever again? Could that happen? I'm like, it could. He said, who are you without drumming? I'm like, oh, no, nobody, I guess, right? Could the band fire you because of this? That? Yeah, I guess it's possible. And what he was getting at ultimately is he took me to Matthew chapter 7, where Jesus shares the parable of building on the strong foundation versus building on sand. And he's like, Dave, I'm looking at your life. It's built on sand. And my hope for you is you seek God with everything that you are. And he didn't know I didn't have faith. He just knew that I was apathetic, maybe.
Sure.
And so you seek Jesus with everything that you are and build on a strong foundation. And whether drumming is your thing or it's not, or wherever God leads you or whatever happens in your life, you're going to have a life built on a strong foundation. And 3 years from now, yeah, that was an arbitrary number, but hey, 3 years from now, you're either going to look back and be glad that you built on a strong foundation, or you're going to look back and you're going to be devastated that you never sought the Lord. And you're going to wish that things were different. And so he says that to me. And here's my body language. Yeah. Yeah, brother. Yes and amen. What's going through my mind is, I've been on the fence with all this Christian faith, Jesus, God stuff. And I feel like I've made up my mind that I'm kind of wrapped up on it. Mm-hmm. Like out loud, yeah, brother. Good advice. I get in my car and I'm on my way to band practice, driving from Goodyear over to Tempe. And I make it to like Saraville and Van Buren, just contemplating, okay, you've always kind of thought you don't believe. You always kind of thought you don't, and that's fine, that's cool, that's good. I'm good, you're good, we're all good. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I'm like, I swear, the only thoughts on my mind were, I don't believe, just like that. Tears are flowing down my face. I mean, it's booger bubble mess, right? And I'm like, Lord, I give you my life. As I'm contemplating, I'm so over this, I'm all in, right? I'm all in. And so I'm on my way to band practice. I break up with my girlfriend over the phone. I'm like, I just met God, right? Imagine how I never followed up with her to see how she was. I'm sure that was devastating.
I was going to say, yes.
Right? Show up to my...
Just like guys on drugs.
Yeah, right? I show up to band practice, and I'm like, guys, everything has changed, right? And they're like, okay, he sipped the Kool-Aid, whatever. But legitimately, in that very moment, I pivoted and gave my life to the Lord, and it's been amazing to see what's happened since then. But pretty quickly saw that my passion for music was not as in depth as my passion for what God was doing in it through the local church community. Yeah. And so that's where music eventually found its resting place. As this isn't a career for me anymore. It's a hobby. I'll serve on the worship team.
Yeah. Well, that's an amazing story, and I'm really happy you shared it.
Yeah, thanks.
And I think it helps if somebody was to look back and they've made it this far. That initial question I asked when I said, "Who's Dave?" and your identity, I think you just made the best case study for your identity being in Christ versus kind of anybody I've probably had on, because I think you understand it uniquely.
Appreciate that.
Because you've kind of seen the other side, if you will.
Yeah.
So that's really fun. Okay, so you've made it. Your business is thriving. You've got your other place in Flagstaff. Is there a ministry angle that you would money's not an object that you would like to see grow, or an aspect of church maybe you would change, given your unique perspective?
Yeah, not to be too simple about it, but what I've seen have just the most, I don't know if I'd say efficacy, but something that I'm
church
seeing,
word, yeah.
that helps ministries thrive. And so to change anything, no, not necessarily to devote myself a little bit more or to train better or to, is to love God's people and teach his word, right? Now, I know that sounds insanely simple, and most ministries have their 17 funnels and their pillars and they're all their things, which are good and fine as well. But the more time and energy I can devote to loving God's people and teaching his word, and helping to enable others to do the same, that's my jam. And so outside of, enjoying being with my family and things like that, the number one thing I would want to do, other than me with Eric, of course,
Come on.
one of my favorite ways to spend time would just be sitting down with one of the teenage guys or one of the young adults in our youth group and like, hey, let's go grab a Dutch Bros, and just sitting down and being like, how's life? And ultimately doing my best to say, I wouldn't always put it into words this way, but doing my best to be a trusted influence that points people to the Lord.
Yeah, sure.
So as much of that as I can.
I love that you said that, because it's become just remarkably clear to me the value of one-to-one connection in any setting. Of course, specifically this one, but anytime you can get anybody kind of in a one-on-one in a quasi conversationally friendly atmosphere, it's fun to see what can happen.
Oh, absolutely.
When you really take time to connect. And I think even back to a business side of things, but on the sales side of things, I think so many people are, and I'm going to probably push this into, evangelical circles as well as any other influential circle. I think you do the best when the other person feels heard. Yeah. And I think you just highlighted that as well with what you said about your dream scenario of just grabbing somebody, sitting down, and getting to the nuts and bolts of life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's one of those things, I experienced a lot of it in my world as well, growing up. And I still have plenty of it, right? But I experienced so many people in those years where I don't know what was necessarily going through their mind is, look at this thriving young man, because maybe I did a good job faking it in ministry circles, or it was, when's the light bulb going to turn on? Let me spend time with it. But I had so many people investing in me with no perceived, transactional. Well, I'm investing in him, so look at him growing and thriving. But so many people that were faithful to invest in me and ultimately bring me to faith and have a huge impact on, how I see the world around me and, how I serve in ministry and all that.
You made me think of another question. Do you have besides, Jesus, is there somebody here that's a mentor for you that you've looked up to for a long time? Is that a singular person or is that a group of people?
I have. I think the Lord has blessed me with a long list of people that I could lean on and trust. In the faith world, the one that I would look to, his name is Randy Therio, and he was the worship pastor that said, hey, you want to try out for the worship team? Okay. And we're best friends, to this day. But he was the one who helped me, come to faith and walked with me and discipled me into ministry and all that. And I'll tell you, he has a long list of guys that he has led to faith and developed in ministry. It's pretty amazing what he has done. Pretty awesome. Now, in the business world, I have someone, our relationship's a little newer. Probably I've known him, kind of just been surface level for years. The last probably year and a half, 2 years, a good friend of mine, his name is Jay Klein. He serves with me at the church, and he's the GM of Penguin Plumbing and Air Conditioning.
Oh, yeah.
So, I'll tell you, when I need business advice, he's the man.
Yeah, that sounds like
the guy.
Wonderful connection right there. Big name company, doing a great job out here. I can actually see their emblem right now driving past me on the freeway. They have a lot of trucks.
Oh yeah. So they were recently, I think it was 2.5 years. Jay is the one who got them licensed as their first plumbing and electrician guy, right? And their license is still under him. So with the ROC. But as the company grew, eventually, more vans and things like that, and it was just a locally owned outfit. They grew to the point where they sold to any hour, which, what they do is they purchase AC companies. Exactly. Yeah. And so he made his way to GM, the company sold, and he stayed as GM. And
That's
so
awesome.
Ownership over him, but he runs the outfit. And trust him with that.
That's insane. That's crazy. All in all, this is one of my favorite chats. I wanted to say thanks for taking a risk. I think it's been a week since we've known each other, and I think it just is a testament to kind of like sometimes you just know that you're going to get along with a guy. So I really appreciate you making time to come out.
Yeah, it's great being with you.
That was fun. We'll see you again next time.
Looking forward to it.